As for New York as a whole, it's definitely, in my opinion, worth visiting. I enjoyed myself at a grand holiday and whatnot. Well, I always think when you're not working, it's hard not to enjoy yourself. I suppose some people do. I rather don't. It is an expensive place, though. There's no denying that. Hotels, for starters, are very dear. A lot of people, I suppose, stay in Brooklyn. I can understand that. I ended up staying. We were on Midtown Broadway, which was very well located because it was on the one, two, and three subway line. The three is the express subway line. So if you want to go to Times Square, it was two stops for us. That meant you got there in like less than 10 minutes. The one and two, they call them local. They basically stop in loads of different places, but they go to places like South Ferry, which is where you get off to go to the Statue of Liberty. And of course, in lots of them, they link over and you can exchange onto the other lines. As a whole, just kind of siding off onto the subway thing, I found it a little more confusing than, say, the Tube in London. But it's a very similar setup. I just bought my weekly kind of unlimited travel card, and chopped and changed between trains. Once you kind of know the difference between express and non-express, and the different coloured lines, and going basically, you're basically always going either downtown, hence the song, or uptown, or kind of across town. Once you kind of get your orientation, you'll be fine. It works really well. It seemed to be very safe and actually very clean. I was really surprised. A lot of times the trains in Ireland can be a bit scuffy and vandalised and whatnot. So it was interesting to see that in an underground kind of bigger metropolis, it was better kept. That was a theme that actually I found throughout. So, where was I? I was talking about hotels and whatnot. Yeah, best advice there, Travelocity and shop around. Travelocity is superb. Forget about stars and all this bullshit. Oh, this hotel's got 4 stars. Yeah. If you look, you often see high stars hotels that actually don't meet people's expectation at all. Certainly not for the money. And then you can see stars that have lower, or you can see hotels with lower star ratings, and people find that the service is better. It offers great value for money. And I would say, yeah, TripAdvisor is your friend. So, if you're staying, in a hotel though in any of the more expensive parts, you definitely need to budget for that, because to eat and whatnot for the rest of your holiday, that can be very expensive. I was lucky enough that there was a kind of an American style diner near where we were staying, like literally 2 doors down. It was quite nice, and it was pretty reasonable value. You couldn't say the exact reverse about a lot of places. And to put it in perspective, on Times Square there's a place called Applebee's, and the food there is nothing remarkable. Pasta, pizza, burger, those type of things. Now, a bog standard burger was $22. And that's not, and this is another really important thing, that's not forgetting the fact that there's 8.8% tax on the food. So you're talking another, £2 on tax. And then you got to tip the waiting staff after that too. And they say 20%, or that's what people seem to say online, is 20%. Whether or not that's the service industry kind of pushing that's the standard or not, I don't know. But I suppose what I ended up tipping. And I mean, so you're talking £4. I mean, you're talking $28 for a burger. That's expensive. And you might say, Times Square, the rent. Well, I'd say, okay, yeah, the rent in Times Square is going to be very high, but they're also going to have a very high turnaround the customers. They have the most chance of getting people in and being full the whole time. Applebee's were not. They were quite empty a lot of the time. No surprise with those prices. And I was thinking as well, how come the food seemed to be so dear? if the waiting staff and the service staff and whatnot are paid so little. At least in Ireland, I mean, we've a fairly high minimum wage. You can say, well, it costs a bit to eat out, but then again, you've got staff to pay, you got rent, and it was often cheaper than it would be in America too. So definitely, it's another place. Shop around and budget. You will need to bring disposable money for that. That's actually why I left a lot of the shopping right till the end. You could very, very easily spend in excess of $100 every day on food. You could spend $100 in one meal, pretty much. Certainly, I mean, Applebee's, if you went for a starter and a main, a couple of drinks for two people, you're on €100, or sorry, dollars. So you need to budget for it. There's some places that you can eat a bit more affordably. There's a place also in Times Square. I'm kind of talking about that area now. There was a place called Chevy's, I think it was, that served Mexican food. That wasn't too bad. Service was a bit rubbish, but it seemed like an interesting place, and it was fairly affordable. There was Planet Hollywood. Interestingly, they had the real piano from Big. I think it was signed too, and other Hollywood merchandising stuff. It was okay, but they're very, very tip heavy in that place. It was the only place we went to that had someone in the toilets to dispense soap and harsh, cheap brown paper towels. And then with the tip, practically hand out for a tip for basically doing nothing. It just seems ridiculous to me. In terms of things to do, well, I mean, it's hard not to have things to do in New York. It's massive. It's more a case of what do you want to do. Just, I mean, in terms of the standard tourist attractions, you have things like the Statue of Liberty. We nearly weren't going to go to that. My partner doesn't like water, she doesn't like boats or anything like that, so we thought, oh well, you gotta go out on a ferry. And it's a fairly short ferry, but all the same. But it was a calm day, so we went out. Actually, we went twice. The first time we went down to South Ferry, it had been okay, a bit windy when we left the hotel and we were going around town, but by the time we got to South Ferry there was snow. And then literally nearly as soon as we turned back, the snow stopped, but the seas were quite rough, so we went back when it was clear. And yeah, a great value for money. It was like $13 for an adult ticket, and there's extra for an audio guide. But you get to go to the island, see the statue. You can't go inside at the moment because it's been renovated. And then you can go to Ellis Island too, which is where they have the Immigration Museum. I was very surprised by that. I wasn't expecting much to be on Ellis Island at all. But the museum is actually quite large, and the entrance is included in your overall fee. So the 3 ferries you get, one to each island and back, the access to the statue and access to the museum are all included in your €13. Great value, and I mean, you're going to New York and you really have to go there. And I didn't go to the World Trade Center Memorial. I didn't know if that would be too sad, should we say, for a holiday. You're kind of going over there to have a good time, enjoy yourself. So maybe not, maybe next time. It's also one of the great things about going to Statue of Liberty is you can see New York from the skyline, and that is impressive. When we were down at ground level, the buildings seem big, but only if you look up. But when you're walking around somewhere, you don't look up. You're looking, and your peripheral vision stops at about 6 floors anyway. So that made it no different to, say, Ireland, Dublin, or London, place like that. But if you look up, yeah, they're big. And we also tried the Top of the Rock tour. There's a few little bits to read before you basically go up to the top of before you go up to the elevator to the top of the building to the platform where you can use those binoculars to look out and whatnot. We did it at night to kind of get a different perspective from going to the Statue of the Day. I found that was like $25, but we did this kind of $2 per ticket, so it was 23. For what you get, that seemed kind of pricey. If you could sit there and they had a few benches, but maybe have a coffee or something and take in the view, okay, I could see how it'd be nice, but a little pricey all the same. There's also the Empire State Building. You could do the same thing. Didn't bother because it's essentially identical. You can go ice skating in Rockefeller Center, and there's actually a few places in New York that you can go. So you can do them, Bryant Park, Central Park, and there, to name just three. We didn't go ourselves, but there's in the centre you can actually get a coffee and whatnot and sit down and take in the view of it, and it is quite a nice view. And the Starbucks there was quite nice. It was the only one I got into. They make out like Starbucks is everywhere. It's very popular. It's very common, but there's freaking no seats. I don't know. They must have a massive takeaway trade because you could never get a seat in any of them. Literally, we went into loads and could never get seats. And while I'm sort of gone on eateries again, my God, McDonald's seems fairly crap over there. You can tell they don't have to try as much. To be honest, they seem old and kind of out of date, whereas the styling in Dublin seems much more modern. They're not as dominant here, so I guess they have to try a lot harder. I actually prefer Burger King's over there. You can at least usually get a seat in them, and they had a vegetarian option where McDonald's over there didn't seem to, or at least they didn't have it on the board. There are many other things to do, and a lot of them are now escaping me. You can do all those buses tour and the Brooklyn Bridge and things like that. There's also loads and loads and loads of shows on. They're quite expensive, and if you want to get discounts, you can go to a place called Tickets in Times Square. One day, I think it was Saturday, we were just going around Times Square because obviously you're going to check out Times Square. But the queue was so long. You would be hours in the queue, and I was just thinking, Jesus, it's not worth it to save like $40. It's just not. I suppose if you're really on a budget, that's what you do. But I don't know. In terms of shows that I went to, we went to the cinema one day. Not quite a show, just to see if it was any different, the experience to being at home. We went to see The Woman in Black, which was okay. Much preferred the stage adaptation, but we were expecting the audience to be a lot more kind of boisterous and involved, but they really weren't. One thing that was more different was the type of food that you could have. There was a big push for burgers, like hot dogs and burgers and things like that, and there's a little bit of that here, but their primary thing was that type of food, whereas where we are, it'd be popcorn, soda, and like pick a mix. But they don't pick a mix. They had like tiny little boxes of things like Milk Duds and Skittles, and they seemed worse value than they do it in Ireland in the little kind of cinema bags. We also went to the Spider-Man show. Oh, what the hell? Turn Off the Dark. I don't know why they call it that. It doesn't make any sense. There's a song called Turn Off the Dark. Again, it didn't seem to make much sense. It was expensive, but it was something unique because I don't really think the show will travel. There's a lot of wire work involved in the second half. It's one of those shows that it could have been really good if they had slightly better main performers, or it was tailored to suit them. If you don't know, Bono and The Edge from U2 wrote the music and lyrics. It sounds like every single song should be sung by Bono, and the main guy at times tries to sound like him, but he doesn't, and it just feels a bit off. Now the second half was actually more music driven than lyric driven, and there was a lot more action. The pacing was much better, and it was actually quite good. The first half, even some of the effects, like where he first learns that he's Spider-Man, is fairly crap. Or he's still Peter Parker, I'd say. That's got the mask. When he first gets the Spidey suit, he comes swinging out, and it's fairly cool because they come swinging up to where the balconies are and whatnot, and basically get off and run through the audience. So I was the last person in the edge of our seat. I was right near the front of the balcony, and like they're within a foot of you, you know, waving at you type of thing. It made for a different show. I wouldn't say a must see, but it's one of the few things that is on Broadway. It's not on in something like the West End. And you know, we've been to plenty of shows in the West End, so we didn't go to that much in Broadway. So, is there anything else? I know one person asked me about customs and you know, import duty tax, that type of thing. Now, you are meant to declare what you bring back, but I think there's certain restrictions. So things like alcohol, cosmetics and whatnot, they have to be declared if they're over a certain amount. I think you have an allowance. Now, I wasn't bringing back any alcohol. We thought about it in the duty free, but decided not to. So your mileage may vary on that. It's one of those things when you, I obviously, my airport would be Dublin. When you fly through Dublin, there's kind of like a green and a red type of thing. It's like, I got something to declare, I don't have something to declare. No one was walking through the, I have something to declare. I can't imagine, no, maybe it could be different in different countries, but it doesn't seem to be a big thing in Ireland. So, wrap up time, or is there anything else I can think of? I'm sure this video has been quite long because I've nearly drank this whole drink. Oh, one little thing. My God, American security. There's American security in the Irish airport, Terminal 2, where everything's flying out of. That's, they're really professional, quite nice. They do their job well. But I always find in America, the international flights there seem very chaotic. The queuing system seems to be all over the place. And they're so rude about it. Now, obviously, we understand that it's serious matter, but they just get so irritated with people so quick. Okay, say for example, you're going through, you've got your shoes off, your belt off, your coat off, bags, you know, your carry-on bag in the little tray, and all your pockets empty, that sort of stuff. And I had like a zippy on. I had a half zip down, you know. That's just what I had. And I had to take it off because no reason, just because. I was like, Jesus. It seemed excessive. If I had something, it'd probably be apparent, like it'd probably come up in a scanner thing. They have started to introduce that full body scanner, but we didn't have to go through it, thankfully. And some people then, you see that, you know, they had full head scarves and, you know, the works, but they didn't like, I mean, they were totally covered, but they didn't have to take their clothes off, and it just seemed odd. And even in the Statue of Liberty, you have to go through airport-like security to go on the ferry. If anything, it was even more abrupt there, and they were ruder. So, there you go, security sucks. Anyway, I have rambled on enough for sure. So if you've made it to the end, thanks for watching, and congratulations, you succeeded. And I'll hope you tune in next time after that sort of long video. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.